That's the champion's bell. And this is our current champion, Mrs. Helga Trudeau. Mrs. Trudeau, how long have you been on our program?
This is my third day.
And how much have you already won?
$7,000.
Well, as long as you keep on winning, you can keep on playing on Play for Keeps.
When it comes to game shows, Buzzer's got it.
Let's do it.
We match it.
This is it.
We sweep it.
Oh, boy.
We think it.
All right.
And pass it.
Very good.
We tell it.
Terrific.
We card it.
Glad you're here.
We knew it.
Woo.
We are the home for fun and games.
I don't believe it. It's marvelous.
Now you got it. Buzzer, let's play. For more fun and games, visit buzzertv.com.
Yes, it's Play for Keeps, where big decisions are made for big money every day in the week. And here's your host, Sonny Fox.
Hi, welcome to Play for Keeps. Right over here, of course, we have our champion, and she has her $7,000 clutched tightly in her hot hands, right? You know, Mrs. Trudeau, for those of you who are meeting Mrs. Trudeau for the first time, let's go back a little bit and tell them what we found out about you. You're originally from Denmark, is that right?
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you studied opera somewhere en route.
I did.
But you're not singing opera now?
No.
What are you doing now?
I'm driving a cab.
In New York?
In New York City.
That's right. We found that out. Those are all the people you missed as you wheeled through the streets. They're applauding your skill in driving. Well, you know, in a few moments you're going to be meeting your first challenger of the day, Mrs. Trudeau. Remember, you're going to have to make those three very important decisions. Mm-hmm. First, you're going to have to try to decide whether you want to take this person on as a challenger.
Right.
That's decision number one. If you decide you will, then remember we look over at the category board over there, and you have to decide which of those categories you're going to choose. Right. Decision number two. Mm-hmm. And then you have to decide how much of your hard-earned winnings you're going to put up.
All right.
Those are your three important decisions. All right, are you ready for your first challenger?
I am.
All right, let's bring her on. Nancy, who's our first challenger?
Sonny, it's Mrs. Shirley Travis from Lawrence, Long Island.
Mrs. Travis, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Lawrence, Long Island. What do you do out there?
Oh, I'm just a housewife.
Well, I don't know why you say just. That's a pretty important occupation. Do you have any children?
Oh, yes, I have 4 children and a grandson.
Mrs. Trudeau, she looks like a very young grandmother, don't you think?
She does. She's very good looking, too.
Thank you.
Yes, she is. Well, do let no, we'll meet in a little while. You are young and, of course, very attractive. It's too bad they don't have beauty contests for grandmothers like they do for Miss America and Mrs. America, you know?
But they did. They had a contest this summer, a grandmother contest, and I won.
And when they have great grandmother contests, you'll be in there fighting, won't you?
I hope I'll be there then.
This is the first beauty contest you ever won?
Oh, no, I won quite a few. I won them when I started winning them when I was about 18. I entered the first contest when I was 18, and I won.
What was that?
That was the charming contest that the Daily Mirror had in 1924.
Charming child?
No, I was 18 then.
Weren't you charming?
I wasn't a child. I was a miss.
What else did you win? What other beauty contests?
And the Graphic had a contest for figure, of course, and I won. Not for face, for figure.
Well, I think if I had one for face, you would have won, too. Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I like cooking a lot. I
You
like
do?
to make very fancy things like hors d'oeuvres, and I like to get these colored bread and make these canapes.
Colored breads? What do you mean?
Yes, I order colored bread in Macy's. You know, they sell colored bread if you order it in advance.
Really?
And I like to...
The only color our bread turns is green, and I don't think...
No, you can get
You can get
colored
green bread right there at
Yes,
Macy's,
you could.
already moldy.
No, you could get green bread.
Really?
You really
Well, all
could.
right, Mrs. Travis, as we've been talking over here, you come on over here. As we've been talking, you may have noticed the very cold and calculating eye of our champion, Mrs. Trudeau, eyeing you up and down, listening to every word you were saying, because she's got to make some very important decisions now. The first one she's got to try to figure out is, does she want to take you on as a challenger? What do you think, Mrs. Trudeau?
Oh, you look very pretty.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll take
You're going to defend your championship. Fine. All right. Mrs. Travis, will you go over and take the challenger's buzzer? Mrs. Travis, do you want to say hello to Mrs. Trudeau? Why don't you shake hands?
Hello.
Hello.
Not with the money, though. You know, hold that up.
Oh, yeah.
Right. All right,
Well, I
now,
can.
now you've got to make your next decision, and that is, what category do you think you want to run this contest on?
Well, let's see.
No beauty contest over there. You're safe
No,
on that.
I know.
Mm-hmm. Which one?
I'll try Mrs. Travis on classical music.
Classical music. All right. Now, how much money are you going to put up on that?
Oh, gee. I hate to part with it.
I don't blame you. You got to put it up though to make more. You know.
2,000.
$2,000. All right. Put it out there. 1, 2.
1, 2.
What's the matter, Mrs. Travis?
I hope I win.
Well, if you do win, Mrs. Travis, you become our new champion. And you win the $2,000. Mrs. Trudeau, of course, if you win, you remain our champion, and that $2,000 becomes 4. Well, now, there's no point crossing your fingers. The thing you got to do is pick up the buzzer and bell, right? Let's hear the buzzer. How's it work? Good. Bell. All right. Both know how to play the game. First one to get 3 correct answers wins. We're playing for $2,000. It's classical music. Ready? All right. Who was the composer of the Clock Symphony? That's the champion's bell.
Joseph Haydn.
Joseph Haydn? That's right. Joseph Haydn is correct. That's 1-0 for the champion. And it's still classical music, and we still have $2,000 at stake. Who was the composer of the celebrated Alpine Symphony? That's the bell of the champion. Well, you rang it, now.
Johann Strauss.
Johann Strauss? No, that's not the right answer. That's not the right answer. Mrs. Travis.
Oh.
No, You've had your chance. Now let's have Mrs. Travis have a crack at the same
Is
question.
it a Strauss?
Well, it's not Abraham and Strauss.
I know. It's Richard Strauss.
Richard Strauss is right. Now it's 1-1, and it's getting a little tighter here. Remember, we still have $2,000 at stake. It's still classical music, okay? Deep breath. All right, here we go. Who was the composer of the famous symphonic poem, Don Juan? And there's the champion's bell, Mrs. Trudeau.
That's Richard Strauss, too.
That is Richard Strauss. That's correct. You could really kick yourself, couldn't you, huh?
Well, I wish you all the luck, Val.
Well, now, wait a minute. It's not over yet. Save some of the luck for yourself. It's 2-1 now in favor of the champion. Remember, 3 wins, challenger. So this is a pretty important question. There's still $2,000 out there. Here we go. Classical music. I'm going to give you the name of a popular song. You name the famous classical work it was taken from. Our Love. Do you know the tune? Would you like me to hum it?
Please.
My big chance. Now, if that means that you don't like my singing... No? You think you know the answer?
I think
All
I
right,
know.
there's $2,000 at stake. What's the answer, Mrs. Trudeau?
I think it's Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet.
That's right. Winner and still champion. You know, Mrs. Trudeau, you should have sung it. You're the opera singer, not me.
Well, I didn't get the chance.
Afterwards, we'll harmonize, okay?
Fine,
Right.
fine.
Well, Mrs. Travis, that was a pretty good try, but you lost, of course, but you won't go home empty-handed. Here's a $50 savings bond that'll buy you a lot of colored bread. Thanks for coming up to Play for Keeps. Mrs. Trudeau, you remain our champion, of course. You stake $2,000. You get $2,000. That gives you a grand total of $9,000.
I don't know that I look it, but I am.
You're what?
I'm very excited.
I believe you. I believe you. That's a lot of taxi cab
can.
fares
You
right
can.
there.
Right,
$9,000, huh?
I know.
Mrs. Trudeau, getting back to this taxi cab business for a while, do men taxi cab fares, that is the men who take you as a taxi cab driver, do they ever have any comment on your driving? Do they resent you as a driver?
Well, if they do, they haven't let me know.
They haven't had the courage, or do you think they really, does anybody ever tell you you were a good driver?
Yes.
What'd they say?
Well, one very nice man I took for quite a long ride through traffic, all the way from 34th Street to 91st, and he said not a word while we were driving, and he got out of the cab, and he said, I want to compliment you on your driving. You are a very good driver, and I know. Now, I don't know how he knows, but that's what he said. And
In other words,
asked him
you
why he
yes.
thought so. And he said, well, he could tell that I felt the rhythm of the traffic, and I had never heard that phrase before, and I think it's a very good one. I think that's really what makes you avoid the seasick rides, if you know how the traffic moves.
There's a rhythm to New York traffic?
Oh, I think so.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a 24-bar rest. You know?
Well, not always.
Oh, you sometimes do move around.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to our next contestant,
Good.
Mrs. Trudeau, but before we do, let's take out about 60 seconds to watch this.
Fine.
Mrs. Trudeau, back to play for keeps. Let's find out who your next challenger is. Nancy, who is Mrs. Trudeau's next challenger?
Sonny, it's Miss Sandra Trachtenberg from Newark, New Jersey.
Miss Sandra Trachtenberg. What do you do out in Newark, New Jersey, Miss Trachtenberg?
I'm a school teacher.
Please.
Mrs. Trudeau is a little bit nonplussed at the fact that you're a school teacher. Let's find out what you teach.
I teach Spanish at Hillside High School.
Spanish. That's a Romance language, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Like Je vous aime beaucoup, or...
Well, that's French, but it's close.
What about the words, you know, I love you very much? Is that what they mean by romance?
Yes. Very romantic.
No, really, where does the term romance language come from?
Well, all the languages that stem from the Latin language are called romance languages.
Like Italian?
Yes,
French?
and Spanish, and French, and so forth.
You know, Miss Trachtenberg, there are a lot of movies out lately about schools.
Yes.
Like the Blackboard Jungle and things of that sort, which portray high school students today as a fairly frightful group of boys and girls. Now, you're a high school teacher.
Yes.
Do you think those things are exaggerated?
Well, I can't tell. I can only speak from my experience.
Well, from your experience.
And I have never found anything like that where I teach. I've only had pleasure in teaching.
Really?
Yes.
You think the boys and girls today are no worse than they were when you were a boy or a
I
girl?
don't think so.
Have you ever been to Spain?
Yes. In the summer of '53, I traveled to Europe, and Spain was one of my stops, one of my favorite stops.
Wonderful. What about romance languages? What about romance with men teachers? Anything?
Well, most of the teachers in our school are married, and I'm still enjoying life.
They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. You understand that. Being married and not enjoying life. Come on over here, because if you don't, I'm afraid that Mrs. Trudeau is going to be climbing right over that counter in a minute, trying to get a real good look at you, sizing you up, listening to what you've been saying, because she's got to make a pretty important decision now. Mrs. Trudeau, what do you think? Do you want to take her on as a challenger?
Well, I wonder if I have any chance with a high school teacher.
Well, you know, you can retire at any time if you want and take the $10,000 that you've won and leave. But it's $9,000. If you take $10,000, you'll never leave. $9,000. But if you do, of course, you lose your chance to go on and on and on and increase your money far beyond what you have now. So, on the basis of that, on the basis of your challenger here, what do you think? Are you going to take her on as a challenger?
I really think maybe I should just take my money and go. She looks awfully smart.
Yeah, well, she does. Smart in a nice way.
Thank you.
When's it going to be?
I'll take her.
You take her on. Miss Trachtenberg, will you please take the challenger's buzzer? And Mrs. Trudeau, Miss Trachtenberg. Now, what category do you think you're going to beat her on?
Well, I wonder if there's anything there she doesn't know.
Love stories?
Oh, no, she's too pretty. You'll know that. I wonder how much she knows about the comics.
We will soon find out. Now, you mentioned putting up how much?
Well, would you be offended if I only bet 1,000 against you?
Is $1,000 all right with you, Miss Trachtenberg? All right. Will you put down $1,000 over there, Mrs. Trudeau? Now, remember, 3 answers wins. Will you try your buzzer? Champion, the bell. The subject is comic strips. We have $1,000 at stake. Here we go. I'll name a comic strip. You name its creator. Pogo. Challenger.
Walt Kelly.
Walt Kelly is right. 1-0 in favor of the challenger. Still the comics. I'll give you the name of a comic strip character. You name the strip in which he appears. Marion Sam. Challenger again.
Could that be Lil Abner?
It could be Little Abner, yes. I think what she has hidden behind her Spanish book are comic books, you know? Do you read all the comic books you take away from your boys and girls in school?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes, huh? Well, now you picked it now, Mrs. Trudeau.
I know.
You're stuck with it. Now it's 2-0. Remember, one more point and we have a new champion. So let's hold on to those buzzers and bells. Here we go. Comics and $1,000. Here's the name of a famous comic strip character. You tell me the maiden name of his wife. You tell me the maiden name of his wife. Dick Tracy. Champ.
I hope I'm right. Tess Trueheart?
Tess Trueheart is right. Two to one now. You're coming back, but it's still one more for the challenger and a new champ. So here we go. The comics again. In what comic strip will you find the character known as Fousey? That's the champ spell. Mrs. Trudeau. Fousey.
Fousey. Alley-oop.
Alley-oop is right. Now we're down to the wire. Now, you want to take a deep breath? Miss Trachtenberg, you take a deep breath?
Yes.
Anybody else want to take a deep breath? Everybody take a deep breath. Because there's $1,000 on the championship at stake on this next question because it's 2-2. All right, are you ready back to business? The comics. What is the correct first name of Major Hoople? Challenger?
I think it's Andy.
Andy is not right. No, Andy is not right. All right, now, champ, you've got to... Well, now, think well. All right.
Major Hoople?
Major Hoople is the man's name. His first name is what we're after.
Amos?
Amos is right. Winner is the champion.
Oh.
See, you're up against a real champ,
I
Miss
can
Trachtenberg.
see that.
I don't know why she does this to us. She always makes it so hard. Well, Miss Trachtenberg, thank you very, very much for coming down.
You're welcome.
We don't want you to go back empty-handed, so here is a savings bond worth $50. Thanks
you
very much for coming up to play for keeps. Miss Trudeau, you have won again. I know, me too. But you do win $1,000 again. Let's put this with the rest of your loot and add it all up, and it comes out to $10,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You were very thoughtful.
Well, I know. I'm sweating, too. Mrs. Trudeau, we get to be real pals up here after 3 days,
Well,
you know?
I've known you for several days now, don't forget.
That's right. This is the 3rd day up here, and we
is.
get to be real pals. Mrs. Trudeau, what about policemen? Now, I'm talking about you being a cab driver again. Do you find that they, treat you better because you're a woman cab driver?
Well, there's only one time that I felt a little uncomfortable. I did something wrong. I didn't signal when I made a turn, and there was a police car right in back of me.
There always is.
And he told me to stop, and he got out and came over and talked to me, and I sat very quietly and felt that, he was justified. And he was not terribly nice, And he walked away and really made me angry. He said, well, he said, don't think because you're a good-looking woman you can get away with this. And I really felt as if I'd like to have him give me a ticket because I don't believe in favoritism. I think if you're a cab driver, you ought to be a cab driver and be treated like one.
Right. So, Mrs. Trudeau, in the years to come, the only thing you'll remember of that is that he called you a good-looking woman. I'll bet.
Well, I like that,
Yeah.
but I didn't like the circumstances.
Okay, well, now, we got to get you on to your next challenger here. Let's not waste any more time. But before we get the next challenger, take 60 seconds to relax from that last hard game, and let's watch this.
The Buzzer Academy of Hosting presents Tossing to Commercial.
We'll be back. We'll be back first. This.
Keep it right here on Buzzer.
Well, Mrs. Trudeau back to play for keeps. Now, let's find out who your next challenger is. Nancy, who have you got for us?
Sonny, I have Mr. Elvio Nardi from the Bronx.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
What do you do up in the Bronx?
Well, I live up there.
Mrs. Trudeau, you're a cab driver. You ever get up to the Bronx? You know
yes.
how smart they are?
Very smart.
Well, he is.
Very
I
smart.
can tell already. What do you do besides living up there? Do you work up there?
Yeah, no, I work downtown at a Hotel Pierre in a barber shop.
You're in the barber shop
Yeah.
down there. I see. Are you one of those barbers, Mr. Nardi, who always insists on talking to people as you clip them?
No, well, I don't talk too much because I came from Italy about 7 years ago. I'm afraid I'll make any mistakes speaking English.
From Italy 7 years ago. Is that right? We're from in Italy.
Rome.
Rome.
Yes.
Mhm. Are you going to be an American citizen? Are
Yes,
you now?
I am an American citizen already.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Mr. Nardi, do they take, now that you're an American citizen, I suppose you'll be going in the Army.
I was in the army already. I was...
Well, they don't waste time around here, you know.
That's right.
Where were you?
I was in Korea for 10 months. And I was in the army in 2 years, but 10 months in Korea.
Did you mind being in the Army?
No, well, if you want to live in this lovely country and free country, you got to fight for it.
Mr. Nardi, I won't make any comment on that. That speaks for itself. Now, you come on over here. Mrs. Trudeau has been waiting to get a closer look at you. Don't let her shake you. She looks at this like this to everybody, you know. She's trying to figure out whether to take you on as a challenger or not. Mrs. Trudeau, what do you think?
Yes, I like Mr. Nardi. I'll take him.
You like Mr. Nardi? Mr. Nardi, you're our new challenger. Go on over there and take the challenger's buzzer. And you might shake hands.
How do you do?
Now, Mrs. Trudeau, category time. Which will it be out of all the ones that we have up there? About 10? Which do you think you can beat Mr. Nardi on?
Well, I wonder how much Mr. Nardi knows about love stories.
I'm glad you picked that. I was curious about that myself.
Okay.
Mrs. Trudeau, how much money are you going to risk on your choice?
Well,
Don't count it all. It's all
Well, that's
there.
real money there.
It's real money. That's right, Mr. Nardi. Mm-hmm.
I should say so. I'm sure this is sort of a situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, but I am going to go the whole hog and I'm going to bet $5,000. You think I'm foolish?
Do I think you're foolish?
Yes.
I'll let you know after you play the game.
Oh, that's not fair.
Count it out. 1,
2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Nardi, you may not understand. That's not yours yet.
Oh, I see.
Now we have to play the game. You see, you have to get 3 correct answers before Mrs. Trudeau. And the way we do that, I'll ask you these questions. And remember, the category is love stories. Let me hear your challenger's buzzer. Let me hear your champ's bell. Everything's in working order.
I think so.
Remember, this is a $5,000 round, plus, of course, the championship. Here we go, love stories. In South Pacific, there is a love story involving a French planter and a nurse. What was her name? Champ.
South Pacific, Nellie Forbush.
That's right. That's 1-0 in favor of the champ. Remember this, $5,000 riding on this. Love stories. In love is a many-splendored thing. The hero's name is Mark Elliott. Name the heroine.
Mark Elliott.
Name the heroine.
Something Chinese.
Something Chinese. Now, if neither of you know, take a guess, perhaps one of you.
I don't know.
You don't know, Mr. Nardi? You don't know either. All right, in that case, you both get a strike. And if you miss two more, that's 3 strikes, and you're both out, and you lose the $5,000, too. So you better watch out. Here we go. $5,000 riding on this. Love Stories again, 1-0 in favor of the champ. What is the name of the romantic hero in the famous love story, Wuthering Heights? That's Mrs. Trudeau's bell. Mrs. Trudeau?
Emily Bronte. That's Heathcliff.
Heathcliff is right. Now, Mr. Nardi, you know that 3 wins, so you're on the verge. Okay, $5,000. Let's grab hold of those buttons and listen carefully. Love Stories. What famous pair of lovers was married by Friar Lawrence? Champion.
Was married by Friar Lawrence?
Yes.
Friar Lawrence. Robin Hood and Maiden Marian?
Robin Hood and Maiden Marian?
Yes.
I'm afraid that's not right,
Oh.
Mrs. Trudeau. No, I'm afraid that's wrong. Now, Mr. Nardi, you get a chance at the same question.
Well, I think I know. I think it's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh.
That's who it is. Okay, here we go. 2-1 now. $5,000. Love Stories. I'll give you the name of a tragic hero who kills for love. You name his sweetheart victim, Don Jose.
Oh.
All right, Mrs. Trudeau, do you think you know the answer?
I think so.
What is it?
Carmen.
Carmen is right. Winner and still champion. Mr. Nardi, you're up against a real champ. You're up against a real. You did very well, though. You're not going to go back to the barbershop empty-handed. Here is a $50 savings bond. Thanks very much for coming up to Play for Keeps. You risked 5.
I know.
You were brave. You were also smart. You win 5. That gives you a grand total of $15,000. I don't know where it's going to stop, but it keeps on going and going.
It can't last
Well, let's
forever.
hurry up and get another challenger, shall we?
All right.
Nancy, who is our next challenger for Mrs. Trudeau?
Sonny, I'm very sorry, but we don't have any more time today.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, too. Well, Mrs. Trudeau, you're still our champion, you know. You'll be back here tomorrow to meet more challengers, as many as you want, for as long as you want. And remember, as long as you keep on winning, you can keep on playing on Play for Keeps. So long.
Play for Keeps is a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production. Produced in association with the CBS Television Network.
Look at the